pretty warm today by current standards. It's like 20 degrees. Now I don't have the green dot. That's always troublesome. That might mean I'm not live. I don't know, there's a bit of a problem earlier. I hope it's live. Anyway, we'll deal with it after the fact if it isn't. This is Eric Adams' legacy right here, the future of garbage. It looks terrible. I mean, this was his plan, to just put the garbage in plastic containers on the street. By the way, this is a little deceptive here. These cars are not socked in because this parking right here, this is like the Department of Education. We've got a school right here. This is that Fashion Institute of High School or whatever the hell it is. That's where I vote. But you can see on the other side of the street, no cars there. I guess, yeah, I don't know. I guess they got plowed and there were no cars there because people's cars are socked in. I don't know, am I live right now? I guess we'll find out later. We can check. Wanted to come out and talk to everybody about some pretty crazy things that are going on. I don't know if this has been widely reported too much outside of New York. It doesn't seem to be live, is it? Why is that? Oh, so upsetting. There's just so many different things that can go wrong when you attempt to do these live streams. It's all right. We'll lay it down and then play it back. And then a million people will watch the playback and say, "You're live, you're live." It's part of the problem of explaining things to people. The world is complicated. Things are confusing. I get it. Whatever. This is a video. I'm alive. And if you're watching it, you are too. But one of the things I wanted to talk about, so we've got this historic deep freeze happening in New York. You can see we've got construction equipment. I don't know, it's not moving any snow. It is a bulldozer, so maybe, I don't know who put that there. But I guess you can drive around a little bit. Unlodging your car from being lodged in is a problem for people who are socked in. You see that? Across the street, they're still socked in. Those cars aren't going anywhere. It looks like somebody in a RAV4 tried to. This guy in the bicycle's going crazy. He doesn't care. They treat them like heroes. You know what? They're heroes to the fat. If you're too lazy to cook or buy your own food or go out and walk and get it, I shouldn't say that. There obviously are some people who can't, but I think the overwhelming majority are just lazy people ordering from Grubhub, don't want to go out, have created this entire army of bicycle riding maniacs. But that's not what I want to talk about. There was an announcement, I don't know if this was reported too far outside of New York, but you know, this goes back to Eric Adams and his legacy, not just the future of garbage, the future of people in Rikers Island. Remember, there was that whole kerfuffle about Eric Adams getting criminally jammed up. First, he said he's preparing Rikers Island for Donald Trump. That was a crazy thing to say. If I were Donald Trump, I wouldn't have forgotten about that so quickly to help Eric Adams. But I suppose Donald Trump is fairly transactional, and if he, according to Sal, needed Eric Adams to veto the deal with the casino on the Trump golf course land, that was the purpose of that. But, you know, at the time, people were saying, Trump is going to let Eric Adams go because he wants to put ICE into Rikers Island. You know, there's guys that are coming under attack and shooting people in Minneapolis. These cars are socked in, going nowhere. What's happening with this Lexus? Is this parking according to it? I don't understand. That's a parking spot now. Wow. All right. This guy. Yeah, no, I mean, we've got some improvised parking style going on here. I mean, look, you know, you do what you can, I guess. Yeah, tickets. Look at that. This guy's got a ticket. So you see, that's I object to that, you know. The city has manpower to have idiots standing around on their cell phone giving you tickets, but they're not digging any of this out. Let's look at this. Ridiculous. They should have trucks sitting on the street, loading this stuff in there, melting it down. I mean, what are they doing with all the money? We know they're stealing it. Anyway, Rikers Island. They said, oh, you know, Trump, he wants ICE in Rikers Island. The thing is, I don't think Eric Adams, maybe he did. Why does the mayor have so much control over Rikers Island? Again, we have to ask Sal. He knows much more about this kind of stuff. But what happened today is that a federal judge, it happened a while ago, that a federal judge came in and said, oh, well, we need a receiver for Rikers Island, some like impartial party to take the thing over. And I love it when they say that, right? We're going to have an impartial, like who decides who's impartial? Definitely not the judge. And by the way, I know a little bit about the judge. Talk about socked in. Look at this. Seems like they find the tiniest cars and they sock them in the hardest. Well, Honda, or whatever you are, Hyundai, Elantra, good luck going anywhere. Not happening. It's supposed to be like for something like the next 10 days or more, not above freezing. And Saturday, it's projected to go down to 1 degree Fahrenheit for our friends in Europe. That's negative a lot in Celsius. Anyway, so they appointed some receiver or something like that to handle Rikers Island. I don't know very much about these receivers or whatever they are, these impartial third parties, but we had that with Stephen Biss also. That guy Elliot Park was assigned to be the receiver for his law firm, and he was supposed to be impartial, but he revealed to me on the phone that he knew Stephen Biss for like decades. I don't understand how anybody could know Stephen Biss for more than about 30 minutes and not realize he's an idiot. Remember, we had Dr. Mary Talley Bowden on the show, and she said she was represented by Stephen Biss. Unfortunately, he had been recommended to her by Dr. Malone, and I don't hold this against Dr. Malone. I think he had been tricked. I mean, I guess Stephen Biss can be deceptive when he's trying. I haven't interacted with him from the standpoint of trying to get tricked into having him be my lawyer. But will I get run over by this truck? But I think that Mary Bowden, Dr. Bowden, got tricked by Biss. My point is, she figured out he was an idiot. She said, maybe this was offline in a telephone conversation, but he just, you know, totally sketch. Anyway, point is, that was a receiver there. Any of these kind of impartial things, it seems like there's somebody waiting in the wings who is partial and has some sort of bias who wants to take that. So I don't know exactly what's going on with Rikers Island, but we know there's tons of prisoners in there, dangerous and crazy people. And so Judge Laura Taylor Swain, I think is her name. What's her name? Yeah. She's appointed this dude, Nicholas Demmel, former CIA, to run Rikers Island. Why is that a good idea? It doesn't seem like it to me. I mean, maybe people will say, oh no, you know, this guy, he knows. He's part of some consulting firm. I'm forgetting the name of it now. I probably highlighted it in that video. But we need to look into this guy some more, see what the hell he's doing there. People who've been watching for years will remember David Hawkins used to talk about, he had an acronym, right? What was it about the prisoners? What he was talking about was how U.S. Marshals, what was the name of it? This whole Con Air service. I forget some of the details. This is what they want us to do, is forget the details. Time is long and remembering stuff is hard. But he would talk about how they could hotel or something. I forget what it stood for, but he was saying they can take prisoners. If they need to do a murder, they could take a prisoner, insert him into a crime scene, have him do the thing, and then bring them back to the prison. And I just get very suspicious when we hear that the CIA guy is taking over Rikers Island. Like, why is he doing that? There's a lot of crazy people in Rikers Island, and it connects to a lot of things. Remember, we were talking about Dale Comstock yesterday. He appeared on a video with Danny, what's his name? I told you, remembering stuff is hard. But he was on that Danny Jones podcast saying that nobody knows how they select Delta Force people, and that one of the smartest people that Dale Comstock knew, who was a Delta Force operator, they were all sitting around having beers saying, how'd they select you? How'd they select you? And they're like, I don't know. And the one guy who Dale Comstock said was the smartest guy said he thinks that the criteria is you have to be a psychopath. And I mean, this is Dale's interpretation, because he said they needed people who could kill somebody without hesitation. And he went on to speak about how there are just some people who can do that and some people who cannot, even in war. It's an interesting perspective, but obviously there's going to be a lot of psychopaths in Rikers Island. And so from a similar kind of a standpoint, if you need psychopaths to do things, and by the way, there are violent psychopaths and non-violent psychopaths. I do believe that the clinical definition of psychopathy is just having no empathy for other people, and that allows you to do things like commit murder and steal people's jobs and do whatever. Obviously, there's a spectrum for anything. The person who is psychopathic to the extent that they would kill somebody might be further along that spectrum than the person who would simply destroy your business or steal your wife or, screw you over to take your position at a job. Someone with great empathy for others would say, I can't possibly do that. It would hurt that person. I can't lie to people to defame someone, because they feel empathy toward that person, and that empathy prevents them from doing evil. So if you need psychopaths, certainly Rikers Island is a good place to harvest them or locate them. And again, connecting these things, right? So Dale Comstock says the military and Delta Force, doesn't Delta Force deal with CIA? Can't the CIA tap Delta Force to do stuff? And so if they say, we need a particular psychopath, what if you need a murderer who's a locksmith, or a murderer who speaks Swahili, or a murderer who's a computer expert? I'm sure they have all kinds of specialized operators that they need. You could ask people like Dale Comstock, who know more about these things than I do. I'm just speculating, but certainly having a prison full of them, you could, you've got a stock there that you could select from. And so this goes to our friend Blake. A lot of people have been saying why are you, Blake is back now on X. He was that's it, I quit, now I'm back. He's like a high school girl, right? I'm never talking to you again. Okay, I'm back. It's dude, who cares? But people say to me, he's doing a great job. why are we fighting with each other? First of all, I'm not on any kind of team with Blake. I didn't even know who he was until he came along and started lying about me. So I don't know, all these people who are saying he's helping the investigation, how do you know that? He's producing videos that you like. That doesn't mean they're true or accurate. I've seen falsified evidence from Blake, and I've presented many, many examples of that. Anything that I say about Blake or anyone can be backed by evidence, and by contrast, he's just lying about me. You know, and that's it, is that I don't mind what Blake does. I don't care what his past is, to the extent that he's minding his own business. And other people are saying like, oh, you know, why are you bringing up his past? You know, I've got this or that in my past and blah, blah, blah. Well, because first of all, he's somebody who comes into the public sphere. He's made himself a limited purpose public figure by injecting himself into this debate and saying, hey, I'm looking for the truth. I'm just a guy looking for the truth. Okay, so he purports to be telling the truth, but he can't even use his real name. Douglas, what's with all these people who use fake names? And his entire support network that can't even tell you their name. I mean, think about it in the context of your regular life. If you met a person and then found out that they had lied to you about what their name was, does that make you automatically trust that person? Does that make them particularly trustworthy? So he's Douglas Bednarz, but he goes by Blake. Okay, a lot of people do that, don't like their first name, go by their middle name. George Webb, who also supports and defends Blake by bringing up things that he ascribes to my past, except he's lying about my past. I'm telling you the truth about Blake's past. George is trying to smear me with false statements of things that are, 10 years ago. People are saying to me, oh, this last offense from Blake is from 10 years ago. Why are you even talking about it? It's like, well, look, it's not like I went and found one little tiny, misdemeanor thing that he did that there's extenuating circumstances to explain. It was brought to my attention that he had multiple arrests for serious crimes, felonies, burglary 3 times, insurance fraud from $20 to $100 and something thousand. He works in insurance right now. If you were in Texas trying to obtain insurance, wouldn't you want to know that the guy running the insurance company had been 3 times accused of fraud and had felony convictions in his record? Wouldn't you want to know that? I think I'm doing the public a service. And by the way, Blake didn't come forward. Remember when George put out these lies saying that I was a pornographic film director? Total lie, not true, and he will be unable to present any evidence to support that lie because it's false. He doesn't confront me head on. I'll speak to Blake. I actually invited Matt from Trigger Smart, another guy who doesn't want you to know his name. I said, have a debate with Blake. He DM'd me on New Year's Eve and was like, oh, you want to come on my show with Blake? I was like, no, it's New Year's Eve. I'm with family. Let's do it another day. Blake didn't appear on his show that night. Blake hasn't appeared on his show at all, and they didn't reschedule it for another night. That's weird. But the point is, I will speak directly to Blake if that's what he wants to do. In fact, when Chris Martinson told me, oh, Jason, Blake has debunked your stuff, give him the money, I called up Blake to give him the money. He freaked out on the phone and said, never contact me again. Then he told everybody I was harassing him. That's a lie. That's defamation, Blake. Harassment is a crime. In fact, that's defamation per se. You've accused me of a crime that I did not do. I didn't meet the elements of defamation in Texas or New York. I was induced to contact you. You came to the phone and had a conversation with me. Then you told everybody that I harassed you. Then you also lied and said I gave out your phone number and told people to threaten your wife. I never did that. So then it's brought to my attention that he's been arrested. He's got a criminal rap sheet, extensive. And I put it out to the public because he's falsified evidence. He's lied about me. He's a serial liar, as far as I can tell. And he's fooling people. And he's having a direct impact on this Charlie Kirk investigation, not in a positive way. Somebody told me he's trying to contact the Tyler Robinson defense. I mean, I suppose he's free to do that, but if he's being deceptive about it or giving them false information, why do we want somebody interfering with the investigation? Don't forget, he admitted to bribing someone at Utah Valley University to obtain footage that person did not own. It was from UVU Review, which is the school newspaper or school media outlet, making things that are owned by it government documents. That's a state school that receives federal funds. The videos recorded by their TV station or their YouTube channel, that's not the property of Samir Masi or whoever it was that Blake gave money to get that video and then misrepresented and damaged or broke the chain of custody. Lawyers have told me this who watched the show, that he's invalidated the chain of custody on that piece of evidence, which could have been very important in either convicting or defending Tyler Robinson. So people got upset when I pointed out that Blake was breaking the law, arguably, in what he did to obtain that. I'm trying to do things by the book so that so things can get properly resolved, not to cut corners and bribe people. Additionally, when I had the evidence bounty, I consulted statutes and was very careful about how I put that together because I wanted to properly obtain evidence, and I knew that making an offer to the public that involved payment, it would invite unscrupulous lunatics potentially, and I wanted to avoid any problems. So I very carefully wrote up terms and conditions, and it just seemed to me that Blake then came up with his financial challenge, whatever it was, his evidence challenge, whatever he was calling it, to try to one-up what I was doing. He was doing that to everything I was doing. I found evidence of drones in Adam Bartholomew's footage. He got the footage from Bartholomew and said all kinds of stupid things about drones. I said, hey, offering $4,000 some odd dollars for somebody who can provide evidence that disproves what I'm saying. He said, oh, $61,000. That's a huge sum, by the way. Is Blake a millionaire? How is he giving out $61,000? Was that ever a legitimate thing? And by the way, I used to have a client way back in the day, 30 years ago, who would run sweepstakes for corporations. Like if you were going to have a contest, this guy would put it all together. Because there's different laws about how you can do that. You can't just engage in gambling. And from what I saw, again, I'm not an attorney, but it looked like Blake had put together an illegal sweepstakes. He was offering a prize. My money there wasn't a prize. It was an offer essentially for employment. It was like a bug bounty. If you write software and you say, hey, if anybody can find a security flaw in this software, we'll pay you $5,000. Or as I said, J. Jonah Jameson says, I'll give $500 to anybody who can get a picture of Spider-Man. It's a freelance job opportunity for research and evidence and information. That's different than a game of chance. You know, he was saying you got to shoot something and recreate the shirt movement. It's like a carnival game that he's going to pay you $61,000 for. Was that ever legitimate? So, I mean, again, you know, I didn't go after Blake. I didn't know who he was until he came on the scene and started lying about me and defaming me. Hey, look at this. We haven't been over here yet. Talk about socked in. Although nobody is parking here, that's kind of a lot of snow. This is all businesses around here. Oh, is Whole Foods closed? Maybe they just took in the tables. You can usually eat outside there, but it's way too cold. Oh, they're still shoveling over here. These guys probably work for Whole Foods. So my point is, Blake is a serial liar. Oh, they've got the big machinery to move this snow around. Bobcat.
And windy.
Why isn't the city doing that? See, I mean, there's like whatever number of billions of dollars in New York City, and these cars are socked in like we're in the middle of some, stupid, which we are. I guess if it snowed like this in Uganda, they wouldn't know what to do either. So my point is, when I brought out this evidence, the purpose was not to smear Blake, it was to alert people. This is supporting my previous evidence that he's a serial liar who's attempting to disrupt this investigation more than he is trying to solve it. And just everything he says, not everything, let me not speak in absolutes, but the majority of things that I hear Blake say are false, contradictory, and problematic. He said, I don't remember if this was on Redacted or somewhere else, but he said he's just a guy running an insurance company. He's not even a journalist. So how does he have $61,000 for these evidence challenges? Everybody saw how I got the money. I said it's $1,000. I said this is an amount of money I could pay if somebody actually has the evidence. And then I invited viewers to boost the bounty, which many people chose to do. You can still, by the way, if you want to make payments to paypal.me/crowdsource the truth, you can still support the show that way. I was very clear in what I said, that if after whatever it was, November 4th, nobody can present the evidence to disprove what I was saying, that the money would become a sponsorship payment to Crowdsource the Truth. And the people who put in that money had no issue with that. They told me that, and they knew that. That's why I had the terms and conditions there. Wow, look at this wall of snow. It's crazy. So they're saying it's going to snow more on Saturday. That'll be a thing to see. Anyway, when I put out that rap sheet, again, Blake answered with lies. He after telling me not to contact him, which, by the way, again, if he's talking about harassment, you can't, if you instruct someone not to contact you and then they contact you, that's arguably harassment. But I stopped contacting him. And posting about the person on social media doesn't count as contact. They generally consider, phone calls, emails, going to the person's house or place of business. That's contact. But look at what he wrote here. He's demanding that what does he say? Delete everything you posted about me. Those are not real. You and Allie are trying to destroy my life. I don't even know who Allie is. Then he says, I am done. It's not worth the threats. And now AI bullshit. I've never threatened him, and that's not AI bullshit. And he says, you can tell whoever you work for that I'm done. I don't work for anybody. I work for the people who watch this show and sponsor the show. And then he says, delete that garbage now. Like he has any authority to tell me what to do. I mean, is that absurd? So he's right there, he's accusing me of working for someone who's targeting him, which I don't. Everybody sees, I've been around for almost 10 years doing this. I don't earn any money if people don't sponsor the show by going to subscribestar.com and patreon.com and sponsoring the show for $5 a month, getting access to sponsor exclusive content, or going onto crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com or that paypal.me/crowdsourcethetruth, or following on X at JG_CSTT and sponsoring there. I don't work for anyone, but it's interesting to me that he presumes that I do, like I work for someone who's trying to do something to him. That's what David Hawkins would call the mens rea, evidence of the guilty mind. Like he is working for someone who's told him to do something to me. So he presumes the same is true in reverse. But he's also saying that those are fake. Are they fake, Blake? Because I got it from the Lubbock, Texas, Department of Corrections or something, from some Texas government website. So who's posting fake information? Them? Why would they do that? How'd they get all those mugshots of you? That's not AI. People have seen what I do with AI. I'm not doing that. I might make a comedy video of Blake acting like an idiot if I wanted to use AI. People have seen me do that with George's brother. Hey, look, there's Kid Cudi. That's the guy who P. Diddy blew up his car. And then he testified. Oh, yeah, right. So that Laura Swain, she was the chief judge. I think she might not be anymore. They changed it, perhaps. But I interacted with her a bit in that I had submitted I forget what you call it, but some kind of like judicial counsel complaint about Valerie Caproni. And that was back in the day when I was still talking to Larry Klayman. He told me, submit this thing, they won't do anything, but do it anyway. And I remember thinking, why if they won't do anything? I mean, I guess it was interesting from an educational standpoint. That's sort of how I look at Larry's citizen grand juries. I never really believed that he would indict, Anthony Fauci or whoever. Oh, this entrance to the post office is closed. You can't go up there. Well, let's try the front. But I liked them from the standpoint, it was like, high school mock debate club or something. It was like the mock grand jury, help you understand what the grand jury process is and how it works. But I don't know, spending all that time writing this judicial counsel complaint, I don't think it did anything to Caproni. I've been realizing these federal judges are granted extreme latitude, broad latitude. That's why they just almost automatically become corrupt. I was dealing with that Jessica G.L. Clark, who became a judge at the age of 39. That's probably the most dangerous type of person because she could hold that position for another 40 years. And she started out corrupt. She's a Letitia James lackey. Very bad. So now we're in the post office. It's significantly warmer in here. That's a good thing. They're hiring. So if anybody wants to work for the post office. Oh yeah, what am I mailing? This is a letter to YouTube. They've been very resistant to reinstating my YouTube channels. It's annoying, It goes back to the whole Rikers Island thing, Laura Taylor Swain. So she is the one who decided that this guy, whatever his name is, Demel, should be in charge of Rikers Island, presiding over all the psychopaths. Look, they still have Christmas decorations here. This is pretty nice. I don't think I was up at the post office too much during Christmas because I was in Florida dispatching George's asshole brother, getting that, helping my father get that injunction. He's a crazy person. That's been pretty effective at holding him at bay. He's not allowed to have firearms for the next 10 years, not allowed to bother my dad. That was at least pretty good. And by the way, if Blake thinks that I am harassing him, he should do that. Go to the court in his town, file a petition for an order of protection, present his evidence, and let an impartial judge, luckily, that seems to be what I finally got to in Florida. That was a big deal, You look at this Laura Taylor Swain, Jessica G.L. Clark, Valerie Caproni, the list goes on and on. John Colt. How many judges have I been in front of with George's maniac brother that they've tolerated what he's been doing? Obvious abuse of the judicial system, but less than half an hour in front of Paul D'Amico, the Honorable Paul D'Amico in Florida's 15th Judicial Circuit Court, a state court in Florida. And he could see right away that George's brother was a friggin' maniac who needed to be shut down. And he did. Thank you, Judge D'Amico. I appreciate that. I mean, I made the analogy. It's like if you went to the hospital and your arm was chopped off and bleeding, and 7 doctors were like, no, that's fine, get out of here. And then finally you get one doctor who's like, oh my God, and puts on a tourniquet and stops the bleeding and stitches up your arm, and it's like, okay. That's what D'Amico did. He was, this place is out of business, I guess, with the chief. Oh, it's coming soon. But that's been coming soon forever. So, you see, that's the thing. Psychopaths like George's brother, how do I know that Valerie Caproni didn't say, hey, this is a pretty useful psychopath. He can write legal pleadings to the extent that they can be entered into court. He's not really winning anything, but he's been a substantial disruption for the past 9.5 years, going on 10 years. It's really outrageous. So how do we know that Blake is not the same thing? That is the important factor, is that when you look at all of these criminal records for Blake, you know, I went to a bunch of different Texas websites that had records about Blake, and there were a number of plea bargain hearings that he partook in. He was ultimately convicted, sentenced to prison for 5 years. Blake, did you go to prison in 2017 and get out in 2022? Or maybe they let you out early. Maybe there was a plea deal. I saw something that said he was convicted and sent to prison. Here, is this a new weed place? Veer Leaf. Yeah, that's a weed place. It's pretty fancy for this crappy neighborhood. Fancy weed. I haven't been around here in a little while, so we'll keep walking the treacherous and slippery streets. It's not safe. If you're old and not that able to walk, this is super dangerous. And also, it's easy to get hit by a car. Good thing there's fewer maniacs on bikes right now. So how do we know, just like we're saying, the CIA guy, he's going to control Rikers Island. Oh, and by the way, I found this. One of his last positions was he was the head of corrections at something in Vermont. I don't know who writes this blog, but they're saying that this guy was terrible. Big disaster. Now, I mean, again, anybody can write anything about anybody. We got to look into this further. But it's not like the first article I found about the guy said, oh, he's great. And what a wonderful thing he did for Vermont. Like, how did Laura Taylor Swain decide that this CIA guy should be in charge of Rikers Island? And how do we know that he's not going to go in there? Remember who else came out of Rikers Island? Victor Parra. He was a Venezuelan moped gangster who was mugging people on the moped, and then they made him into an NYPD, you know, some kind of Hamas member to participate in that little protest that was happening right here at FIT that I'm coming up upon as we speak. So are they plucking people? Was David Hawkins right? Are they plucking people out of prisons and dropping them into crime scenes to have them do whatever kind of crimes? And if they're doing that, can't they likewise do something similar with somebody like Blake or somebody like George Webb's brother? And are they doing that? And if they are, don't we deserve to know that? If Blake, maybe they say, oh, Blake is perfect for social media operations, we'll get this guy to pretend like he's a journalist doing something with Charlie Kirk, when actually what he's going to do is lie to everybody, break the chain of custody on the evidence. Remember, it was Blake who initially found that U.S. Army plane that Cullen brought to me. Why hasn't he said anything more about that? Everything shifted to the Egyptian planes. And have we heard anything more about those Egyptian planes? It's all very weird. But these people seem connected, you know? Diligent Denizen, he promotes Blake. Blake retweets him. Diligent Denizen was the guy who started the whole "Where is Cullen?" And he's another one of these people who we don't know what his name is. Why should we trust those guys? You know? Cullen, fake name. Can't be trusted. Douglas Bednarz, fake Blake. I don't know what to tell you, but that's basically the deal. Wanted to mail that item and share with people some of these details about. Now, see, this looks dangerous. In the cold, this type of thing in New York City, got to be real careful. That thing gets a sheet of ice on it, and you stand on it and will immediately be on your ass. So anyway, I'm gonna have to go back upstairs and launch this thing as a live stream, because I don't think it went out. Yeah, I mean, I still don't have the green dot there. Why did that happen? Very frustrating. Yeah, so that letter to YouTube, they won't give me the channel back. George Webb got his channel back, even though it was involved in what seemed to be a legitimate accusation of criminal harassment. That was Mattia Benassi, as far as I know. I could be wrong, but as I recall, and from what I knew from public domain information, Mattia Benassi, with the assistance of Corrine Stoughton, got George Webb's YouTube channel terminated for harassment and stalking, but yet somehow he got it back. And now when I attempt to get it back, they won't do it. They won't even give me a clear answer. And I'm writing to the legal department. You know, this is not just sending emails into a void. Wow, talk about the future of garbage. Look at that. That is some socked in garbage right there.
That's why I was saying that.
It's a garbage snowstorm. God, that's wild. This city is a disaster. Really bad. At least in the cold, the garbage is refrigerated, so it doesn't stink quite so much. But, yeah, listen, I encourage Blake to answer these questions directly. I want to know what the nature of the plea bargains were, these plea bargaining hearings. I want to know if he went to jail. I saw a document that said he was sentenced to 5 years in jail. Now, maybe he's been rehabilitated, but why is he lying about me so much? Why is he falsifying evidence? Remember, Diligent Denizen, he says, oh, I focus on evidence. But when Blake brings about fake evidence, and I point that out, he doesn't want you to know that. Isn't that a little weird? Speaking of CIA, RDS. Longtime viewers are going to know what I'm talking about with that. But, I mean, look at all this filthy snow. At least it's off the sidewalk. We'll see if we get some more on Saturday, but historic deep freeze here in New York. Blake is done, then he's back a week later. Unbelievable. Anyway, Blake, listen, if you want to text me, as you have demonstrated, you should call me up and explain all these things. Tell me what it is that I've got wrong. You said that stuff is fake. That's a lie. So everyone who says like, oh, you know, all this stuff happened 10 years ago. No, it didn't. He's been lying and engaging in fraudulent activity as recently as last week when he sent those texts. He's lying to the public. And why? Is it because he wants to fraudulently induce you to participate in his $61,000, whatever the hell he was doing there? I don't even know the details of that. But let's see what we hear from Blake. Anyway, thanks for watching, everybody. Please sponsor the show. Go to subscribestar.com or patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth or crowdsourcethetruth.substack. jg.com. Don't forget to follow me on X at JG_CSTT.